definitely gonna get the OVO.
Ah, we live. The Jersey boys are back. The Jersey boys are back. This is Steve Ricciardi, Andrew Valencia, Jiu-Jitsu Drew. How's it going?
What's up, man? This is Jitsu Drew. I'm back. I don't know. We probably are on, but it always says off air on my screen. So I'm just gonna go with my boy, Stat Boy Steve. It's been a while.
Yeah, I set it up so it only actually listens to me. We don't listen to you.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so you're
Well,
always off. I can
all
turn
right.
your mic off.
That's
All right, so
awesome.
let's get into this card this week, buddy. This is UFC Fight Night 133. We're gonna do
Boise, Idaho.
a little Draftkings breakdown. I'll talk Draftkings since you don't really.
Oh no, I'm playing. I'm playing now.
Oh,
I'm
you
playing.
are
I
playing.
signed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I signed up. I was oddly banned for some reason, and the reason why is because I didn't know the password to my last account, my first account that I ever made, that I even forgot it even existed. And I made another one, a Jiu-Jitsu Drew account. And when I went to make a play for an MMA fight, they literally banned me for everything, like if I had scammed them. So I got that figured out. We're all good. I'm playing now. So I'll be there this weekend making picks. So I'm definitely going to go, make some money. So you guys should definitely hop on this money train.
Are those the new headphones that I gave you?
Oh, no. Those are in the whip. These are the, you know what I'm saying? These are the ones I go to compete with. So.
Oh, okay. So you haven't used those new headphones yet.
Oh no, I use them, dude. They're pretty good. Look, check this out real quick. That cauliflower ear, man.
Oh wow. Yeah, this
Yeah.
guy's a real fighter, guys. You're hearing from a real fighter. Who you trained with today?
No, today I kept it in at Woodland Park. Shout out to those guys, Campese, Sam, Rick. It's the Tuesday, Thursday crew. We trained really, really hard actually. Those are really tough rounds. So today was more strength conditioning and jiu-jitsu. Tomorrow, more jiu-jitsu, and then next week a lot of striking. So
I'll be honest with you. I hit the bag at the UFC gym in Hoboken. Kind of went in, did my own thing. Tried to get in and out before the class started because I really can't make it through a class yet. That's my goal for next week. By next week, the end of next week, I'm gonna.
You got it, bro. You definitely got it. You got it.
All right, yo, they're here for the DraftKings breakdown. Let's break this down. So the first fight.
Let's do it.
Jessica Aguilar versus Jody Esquibel. You said you didn't really look at the lines, right?
No, not really. I haven't really looked at the lines. I mean, I've heard some of these fighters' names, so I kind of have an idea about them. But the lines, no, I haven't really taken a look at that at all. But you being Stat Boy Steve, I know you definitely have. So please
No,
say that.
I've looked at the lines, but I don't look at the lines until after I do all my research. So Esquivel's minus 145, 8.3K on DraftKings. And Jessica Aguilar is plus 125 and 7.9K on DraftKings. A little background. We were just talking about this off the air, but Aguilar's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. I believe she was off for 2 years before she fought Courtney Casey. And Esquibel is 0-1 in the UFC, and she lost to Carolina Kowalkiewicz. So where are you going with this one, Drew?
Well, pretty much like what you said. First thing to start off with is Jessica Aguilar. She's fought really tough opponents. Cody Casey, she had the reach on her, so that was really tough. She still gave it a good fight, but nonetheless, she's more of a name that you've probably heard of before, even if you've never watched her fight. You definitely heard Jessica Aguilar. Jody Esquibel, that's the fiance of Keith Jardine. She's fighting out of Jackson Wink, and that's a definitely good camp. I did see her fight though. The only thing that I might say about her is that she's literally built. I mean, she's built like a little tank, She comes forward, she pushes the pace, but where she lacks is reach, man. And from someone who has a short reach like myself, you're gonna have to take a couple punches to get inside. And I look for maybe Jessica Aguilar try to get this to the ground. Jody Esquibel might be really hard to take down because she's really small, and coming from a small guy, we're pretty hard to take down with us having low center of gravity and all. So if this fight stays on the ground, I give it a slight edge to Jody. If it goes to the ground, Jessica maybe. But in my opinion, I'm probably going to give it to Jody just because Jody is the slight favorite. She's a nice pick at 8.3. So, yeah, I'm looking to start off 1-0 with Jody by decision. So if you're looking for an over-under, this is definitely going over. What's the over? Yeah.
I didn't look it. I could look it up right now once I'm finished.
I think I
Looking
heard it
up the
somewhere. I don't know if it was of one of the other fights, but I think the over is pretty huge on this one because it's obvious. I don't think this one, none of them really. I mean, Jody might have a chance to land a little overhand right, because she looks like she hits a little harder, because she's a little tank, dude. She hits hard. But in my opinion, yeah, Jody squeaks it out by decision. I don't think unanimous, because I think Jessica maybe gets a takedown or two, so she takes a round. But I think Jody gets this one and move forward. We're 1-0 as the Jersey boys that night.
All right, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with Aguilar, and the reason I'm gonna go with her is what you just said. When it comes to the takedowns, she had 4 takedowns versus Courtney Casey, and I think Casey was just able to put more volume on her, which is why she won the fight. But if you look at the numbers after the fight, I'm actually a little surprised that she lost it. I just think that there weren't enough strikes by Jessica Aguilar. But she looks for takedowns. She got 4 takedowns versus Casey. You did bring up a good point. Casey was a lot taller than her. Aguilar's 5'3". I believe Casey's 5'7", although I didn't write that down. But she was coming off a 2-year layoff. So I think she was just kind of getting her feet wet again. She had some life things going on that, weren't advantageous to fighting at that point. But I think she definitely has the takedown advantage. Now, again, Jody's only 5'1", so Jessica could have trouble bringing Jody down. But I just don't think she was very effective at all against Carolina. Again, I think it's a better opponent. But she struggled to strike. She attempted one takedown, didn't get it. So I think this fight is priced where it's supposed to be. But for the most part, I'm going to go with Aguilar. So we'll go heads up on that first fight. But I do agree with the decision right there.
One last thing, the reason why I'm saying that, and I wanted you to say it, and I'm happy you did. The reason why I think, Jessica Aguilar, obviously she's way better taking her down. I give her that. But the reason why I say that is, look who you're trying to take down. You're trying to take down Jody Esquibel, who, by the way, both of these fighters come out of good camps. Jessica out of ATT, Jody out of Jackson Wink. Now, my thing is Jody stuffs the takedown, gets the win. And if Aguilar doesn't get more than, 1 takedown per round, I don't see her winning because striking, she's not going to win in that matchup. She might throw a couple jabs, but in reality, Jody's going to push the pace, and that's why I picked her. So, moving on, we have Mark De La Rosa and Elias Garcia. You said this was my favorite fight. It was going to be a snuggle.
Yeah, because you're a tree hugger by nature, so I'm going to let you go with this. I'm going to let you rock, and you throw it back to me when you're done talking, bro.
All right, so all day I've been pretty much listening about these guys and pretty much how both of them are really good on the ground. Now, Mark De La Rosa, coming out of Genesis BJJ, pretty young guy. He's 9-1, so he has a really nice record. He's lost his last fight. But the one thing that he has over Elias Garcia, in my opinion, obviously you already heard me saying over, so I'm going to go with Mark, the Bumblebee, is that Elias Garcia, although he is the cousin of Perez and he comes from a good pedigree and he's in a good camp out of Roofish Sport, his 5-0 record is kind of suspect. It's almost like, I know a couple guys who are 6-0 and they're amateur. So it's like if you're 5-0 and you're only number 2 in Wisconsin, then that pretty much means that some of those wins, maybe like 2 of them, are only amateur. You know what I'm saying? So really, he's only 3-0, maybe pro, and we don't really know anything other than that. Other than, he comes from a good pedigree. I'm sure he gets good work with his cousins. But in my opinion, in this fight, if they both go to the ground, which is probably going to go to the ground, Mark De La Rosa gets the edge. I don't really know any of the lines or anything like that, but I'm sure you do. So whatever that is, that's going to be my pick, and I'm going to be moving on to 2-0 that night.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the lines, and then I just want to pick your brain a little bit because I really think this is a toss-up BJJ fight. It's gonna go to the ground. I guess in the fights that I saw, Mark De La Rosa was not effective with his striking at all. So I don't really intend on him doing anything. I don't think he intends on doing anything. I think he just uses the strikes to close the distance, to maybe go for a takedown, go for a trip or something like that to get it to the ground. Now, Tim Elliott had no problem bringing Mark De La Rosa to the ground. But again, this fight is at 135. My issue with Elias Garcia is his fights have been at 125. So I'm a little concerned with the size, and Mark De La Rosa was a little. I think he's gonna have the weight advantage. He was a little chunky around the midsection against Tim Elliott. I don't know how much weight he put on. I think it's going to be tough for Mark De La Rosa to get down to 135. I know he's only 23 years old, but it looks like he may have trouble making the weight cut. I don't know, but Elias
With the way the
Garcia,
UFC is going right now, he better make that weight cut.
yeah, but I mean, Elias Garcia usually fights at 125. He's going to be the smaller guy here, and that's what concerns me because with a lot of the girl fights that are down in that 135. Like a lot of the girls have been fighting at 135. When they go down to 125 to fight someone who's coming up from 115, like it's some substantial difference. And I feel like the weight that Mark De La Rosa is going to have in this is going to be a substantial difference here. So with that being said, again, I would like you to really break down the BJJ and for both of these guys to be able to tell me who you think is better. I think it's a toss-up fight. The issue is that Elias Garcia is minus 140. Mark De La Rosa is plus 120 and 7.6K on DraftKings. So I think De La Rosa makes for a great GPP. I think both of these guys are good GPP plays. I think this is gonna finish early because it's gonna go to the ground. I think someone's gonna get submitted, but I don't know who it is. I don't know who's better. Who's the better BJJ guy? Elias Garcia actually landed. He's southpaw. He landed a left hand to knock David Williams down and then was able to get him to the ground and eventually submit him. Mark De La Rosa got submitted by Tim Elliott. Those were the fights that I saw. That was his only UFC fight. He kind of got – De La Rosa got destroyed by Tim Elliott. But, again, Tim Elliott is pretty legit. So is there anything like that people can look at in the video to try to make some kind of a determination what we should be looking for?
Well, hearing you break that down actually made me feel a little bit and reminded me actually of that fight because when you speak of Mark De La Rosa, he's pure BJJ. Like, look at where he's fighting out of. He's fighting out of Genesis BJJ, right? So that only tells you one thing. It's almost like saying he's fighting out of his hometown gym, out of his hometown jiu-jitsu school, where you're right. All these pure jiu-jitsu guys, what are they really going to do? They're going to close the distance. How do they do that? Maybe throw a good jab, a hook, and then you're going for a shot. You're going for a single leg. You're going for a double. And you're taking this guy down, and then you're trying to work. Maybe his ground and pound is okay. I don't look for it to be all that spectacular. I don't look for him to really try to knock anybody out. Mark De La Rosa is going to go in there. I mean, dude, he fought Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott definitely brought him down. But think about this. When you're a pure jiu-jitsu guy and you really don't want to strike with anybody and a guy tries to take you down, it's almost like heaven sent. You're like, oh, thank you, dude. I'm going to be on my back, and now I'm going to start attacking. You can definitely – the only difference is you got to defend those punches, which Tim Elliott's ground and pound is pretty serious. So that's where Mark De La Rosa got handled. And then where I see I picked Mark De La Rosa because he's a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. And I feel like Elias Garcia, his striking might be a little bit better in that department because, he's out of Du Rufus. He has cousins that, Showtime Perez, Sergio Perez. Those guys are, strikers. They have pretty decent, but, just the camp that they come out of and those type of fighters, he's probably a little bit better with his hands or striking, period. Do I look for him to wow you with his hands and make you say, oh, wow, that's Garcia's hands are crazy? No. He landed one crazy punch against this guy, and then what did he do? He submitted him. So it wasn't like he finished him with his punch. So with that being said, if Elias starts I see it going this way. Elias tries to throw a crazy punch, tries to knock out Mark De La Rosa, of course. But Mark De La Rosa gets the win with the sub, man. I don't know if it goes – I find it probably going into the second round. If Elias doesn't catch him, because Elias, I think, because he's coming off that win where he knocks someone out, and when you knock someone out, you're on top of the world, and then you feel like you can touch someone and they drop. So he's going to come out here and try to drop De La Rosa, but De La Rosa is going to accept the guard and welcome him into, some jiu-jitsu. So
what I'm looking at right now? I'm looking at, because you were just asked about that first fight. I'm looking at the rounds. So if we go with fight goes to decision, why do they not have the rounds on there?
Well, I said I'd pick the over because that one's definitely going over. I don't see anybody. I mean, Jody doesn't have enough power to knock anybody out, so I'm saying an over.
No, I agree with you there. I kind of like the see if I can find it first before I talk about it. No, I can't find it. But I kind of like this one finishing early. So fight doesn't go to decision is minus 155. So they don't think this is going to go to decision. They think that somebody's going to get finished here, right? If it's minus 155. So the favorite would be, oh no, yeah. The favorite would be if it goes to decision would be plus 115. So the favorite would be that it doesn't go to decision. And I agree here. So I think on DraftKings, I think this is a great GPP fight. I think someone's going to get finished here by sub. The issue with this being a GPP fight is, I guess if you get by round, if you get in the first or the second round, you should pay off 10 times. The issue is I don't think there's going to be a lot of strikes before it gets to the ground. So you're kind of looking for passes and you're looking for positioning on the ground. Now, Mark De La Rosa, he did grab a neck when Tim Elliott got him down. He tried to grab for a neck. He went for an armbar real quick. But Tim Elliott was definitely stronger. He was the stronger of the two fighters. I kind of like Mark De La Rosa here too. I agree with you here. I think he's a great play in GPP. I think it's a little risky for both of these guys in cash, just because when it comes to cash, if you pick the wrong guy and he gets finished, then you're getting no points. So I would stay away from it in cash. But in GPP, I think you can play both of these guys. But my preferred play would be Mark De La Rosa.
Oh no, and please, and going forward, a lot of these fights are like maybe type fights. Like these are very hard fights.
Paper thin. The margin is paper thin for a lot of these.
Yeah, a lot of these fights, there really isn't one fight that you can say. I mean, maybe you could look at some of these guys, like for instance, that first fight, Jessica Aguilar. If you looked at just on paper, you didn't look at their names, you didn't look at anything, you would probably say Jessica Aguilar is going to win. Why? Because you know that name, right? But then if you look at the reason why it's like that, Jody probably has a little bit more power, and they're expecting Jess to take her down a whole bunch. But we already spoke about that, and the reason why that's going to happen is because they expect it to go under. Is because Jody's probably going to land a little overhand right, but I doubt it. And like you said, there's not going to be a lot of striking, right? So what does that mean? There's not a lot of striking. There's going to be a lot of struggle on the ground, which is what's going to happen in the first two fights, and they're going to go into later rounds because in most of those fights, what happens? Those fights end on the ground. Each round ends with the fighters on the ground, one looking like they're fighting for their life and the other one just getting gassed, punching themselves out or trying to sub or whatever the case may be. But that's pretty much what I see it going. To scramble on the grounds. And in the second fight, Mark De La Rosa, in the scrambles, I feel like he's going to, if Elias doesn't knock him out, which is what I feel like Elias is going to go into this fight thinking he can do, he's going to get subbed by Mark De La Rosa. So that's where I have it.
Yeah, so let's get into this next fight. And again, if anybody wants to make any of these picks or make any of these bets, you could always check out betmma.tips. On betmma.tips, you can get other people's picks. You can follow people. One of our partners, and then my other partner is Newsome_MMA, and Newsome's actually on Bet MMA Tips. He gives out a lot of free bets. Has a podcast, does his own podcast. He also offers bet plans on betmma.tips. So if you want put in any bets or pass anything off of Newsome, by all means you can do that. All right. So the next fight is going to be Liz Carmouche and Jennifer Maia.
The girl.
And this is another fight that I'm just not very comfortable with what I was seeing on tape. You have two girls that, for the most part, you have Liz Carmouche, who's 0-1 in the UFC at 125. She basically needed this division. She basically said it in a couple of the interviews. Like, she was fighting at 135. She has 7 UFC fights. She fought Ronda Rousey, and I believe it was like the first ever UFC title fight at 135, fought Ronda Rousey. But she's not a 135er. She's a 125er, but she's 0-1 at 125. She lost to Alexis Davis at 135, and in her one fight at 125, that's the fight I watched, she also lost to Alexis Davis, who was bigger than her. She exchanged early. She got a nice trip in the clinch, very active in the clinch, lots of strikes, 4 takedowns. It was a very close fight, split decision. I thought she actually could have won the fight at the end. I was actually surprised that she lost the fight. But again, this is a decision fighter. She's not going to be I don't think she's knocking anybody out. Jennifer Maia, on the other hand, is a Muay Thai specialist in the clinch, good strikes, counter strikes, leads with the jab. But, you know, her last weigh-in was at 123.3. And again, you're talking about someone who used to fight at 135. This girl, her last weigh-in was 123.3 for a 125-pound fight. So again, both of these girls have decent experience. They both have over 15 fights. Maia has 7 straight wins, mostly at 125 pounds in Invicta. They're basically priced as a pick'em, minus 130 for Carmouche, plus 110 for Maia. Carmouche is priced at 8.2K, and Maia's priced at 8K. I think this is going to go to the decision. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this. I think it's going to be a decision fight. You can kind of pick them either way, but I'm going to go with Carmouche. What do you think?
Ooh, all right. So everything that you were saying really sounds great, and honestly, that was a lot of insight because today I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of others' opinions on these fights, and one thing that is obvious, if you like I said earlier, if you look at this on paper and you just look down and you go Liz Carmouche, oh, she fought Ronda Rousey. I mean, obviously, and you look at Jennifer Maia, you go, oh, okay, maybe she's a contender coming up. But then you look at the rankings, which nowadays rankings really don't matter. But Liz Carmouche number 16, Jennifer Maia number 3, and this is worldwide. Jennifer Maia is a better striker, in my opinion. But Liz Carmouche is a gorilla. So she's going to try to get this to the ground in the clinch, try to do her damage, like you said, in the last fight that you mentioned. Sorry, with the names right now, I'm a little scrambled. But Liz Carmouche.
Kristen Davis?
Yeah, with Kristen Davis. But yeah, Liz Carmouche, I look for her. She's one of these fighters, UFC fighters, that she's a veteran. So I look for her to try to, take the fight to the ground, try to pretty much push the pace, try to pretty much maul Jennifer Maia. But if Jennifer Maia can keep this fight on the feet, I feel like Jennifer Maia can get the best of Liz Carmouche. Because Liz Carmouche, in my opinion, she's 0-1 right now on her current streak. She's 34 years old. Probably, in my opinion, like most of these fighters that are on this card, it's almost like she's on her way out, in my opinion. So it's like one of these fights where, yeah, you're right. She found her weight class where she said she needed it, but at the same time, did she do it too late in her career? In my opinion, is it too late for her now? Who knows? So, in my opinion, this one's gonna go to Jennifer Maia, and I think it's gonna go under because I think Jennifer Maia stays on her feet and knocks out Liz Carmouche.
Interesting, very interesting. Now, this next fight is my pick for fight of the night. These guys are bangers. Earlier in the week, before I got through tape study, CG, who does one of the Roto Grinders podcasts, I actually tried to, the last 2 weeks, we actually tried to get together and do a podcast for Roto Grinders, and we couldn't get it to record correctly. But he told me about Raoni Barcelos, and I was like, really? I really like Kurt Hollabaugh. And then I watched tape on him this week, and I was like, wow, these guys are going to throw.
Oh, these guys are going to bang.
Yeah, this is going to be for the most part, I think this is a toss-up fight. I'm a big fan of Hollabaugh. He beat Matt Bessette in a fight that I watched last week because I was doing tape study on Matt Bessette and knocked him out. After the fight, it was ruled a no contest because he took an IV after the weight cut. He had a rough weight cut. Took an IV after the weight cut, which you can't do. So it was ruled a no contest. That was on Dana White's Tuesday night contender series.
Yep.
So again, to me though, I watched the fight. I mean, he can strike. And good calf kicks, very active, very powerful hooks. His striking is legit and powerful. He moves real well. He's a pressure fighter, puts a lot of pressure on his opponent. Fundamental striking, uses the jab. I also watched him against Josias Cavalcante, I believe is how you say his name. He knocked him out in the 4th round. That was a title fight in Invicta at 155.
No. Invicta? You sure it's Invicta? Invicta's
on. No. I'm sorry. It was on Titan FC. It was in Titan FC. So this fight was at Titan FC at 155. Again, this guy is 17-4.
Yep.
Making his UFC debut. won his last 4 fights. One of them was ruled a no contest, but I'm going to call it a win because I watched the fight. He won. Now, 2 of his losses, so two guys that we've seen fight at the PFL when we covered that PFL event a couple of weeks ago. He lost to Andre Harrison by decision, and he lost to Steven Seiler by decision. Remember Steven Seiler was getting his ass kicked? And
Seiler that pulled out that crazy armbar
crazy sub. I can't remember. I think it was a triangle. Didn't he get him in a triangle? But it was a crazy. He lost. I mean, he was down 2 rounds. So those are 2 of Holobaw's. Yeah, those are 2 of Holobaw's losses. And both guys won first round of their PFL fights. I think they actually are going to be fighting again next week. But this guy Holobaugh is real good. He's minus 185 and he's 8.8K. Now, when CG hit me up, he's like, I really hope that Barcelos stays as an underdog. I hope you get a good, DraftKings price on him. We got a great DraftKings price on Barcelos. So, again, he's going to be very popular in GPPs, Barcelos. He's 7.4K. I watched him in one of his fights. It wasn't his last fight. That was against Dan Moret, who he fought for the title. He beat Dan Moret. I couldn't find that fight, but I watched an earlier fight. It was like 2 fights before that. This guy has quick feet. It's tough to hit. Lots of quick action power, right hands, left hands. I mean, he swings a lot of 2-punch combinations, but he swings out of his shoes. I mean, the guy he gets power behind his punches. He steps in with a power right hand, counters with a power right hand, and the counter is actually how the fight that I watched. I didn't write down the guy's name, but how he knocked out his opponent. There's going to be a 4-inch height advantage here. Hollowbrough is going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. But I really like this fight both ways. To me, it's paper thin. It's a toss-up fight, although it's not priced that way. So I think the value is on Barcelos, especially in DraftKings, especially with an underdog that could get a finish. What do you think, though, Drew?
Okay, so first off with Barcelos. Now, Barcelos, if you look at his picture on Tapology, he's wearing a gi. So he is a jiu-jitsu guy, number 1. Number 2, he is a very, very good striker. He's out of Huas Valetudo. So if you know most Valetudo guys, their striking is very brutal and very quick and efficient the way you described it. Now, my only concern is that Raoni fought 2 years ago, and he has had some canceled bouts. So who knows why, those bouts are canceled, injuries happen. We never, those things happen, especially in training and especially in a sport like this where literally you can get her doing anything, a warm-up maybe. But in my opinion, fighting 2 years ago and fighting in the RFA, which really isn't in, it is good guys and he does have some contenders there, but, the level in the UFC is world-class level, man. And Kurt Hallball, bar the whole IV thing, he is a monster. And the fact that he has the advantage of the height and the reach, and the fact that he fought very recent, last year, I think that all gives him the edge. Barcelos is the good play on DraftKings, don't get me wrong. He has a lot of value. But if we're talking about a pick'em here, and I have to, we're making picks here, I'm going to go with Kurt. He's bigger. He's going to come forward. This fight, they're going to drop bombs. Don't get me wrong. They're definitely going to drop bombs. But if you want to talk about, ring rust and things like that, and this being your UFC debut, think about it. You were about to have 2 UFC debuts. You were about to have one that got canceled, then another one that gets canceled. Imagine the anxiety and the stress this guy's going through. I mean, he is a high-level athlete, but in my opinion, that's what's going to make the difference. The fact that Kurt has been fighting, he fought recently, he's the bigger guy, he'll use the range better. And in my opinion, look for Raoni to go to his roots and try to use that jiu-jitsu if it goes to the ground, which I really don't think it's going to. But if you didn't get a hint of where I'm going with Kurt. Yeah. Let's have it. Next fight.
All right, Justin Scoggins and Said Nurmagomedov. I believe Said is Habib's cousin. I don't think it's his brother. I believe it's his cousin, right?
Nope. It's his cousin. He's definitely down with that, with the bloodline. But isn't it funny, right? Like, we see all these Nurmagomedovs, and like, for instance, when we were covering the PFL a little while back, we saw a Nurmagomedov there, and they did all right. But it's like this a lot of these guys coming out of Dagestan, just because they have that name, it's like they come in and you expect them to maul people on the ground and be absolutely crazy. Which, you know, this guy, he may be doing that or he may do that, but he's 11-1. He's number 6 in Russia, not worldwide. So you don't really know much about him, but, you know, the competition out there could be high level, maybe not. So who really knows? You know, he has a lot to live up to, I guess, being Khabib's cousin. But the one side advantage that I think that he does have is that he's going up against Justin Scoggins, a guy who does have a lot of promise coming into the UFC, did have a lot of promise coming into the UFC, but for lack of a better term, he's a major fuck up. There's a lot of fights where he's winning these fights, he's fucking dudes up, and then all of a sudden he ends up in a fucking choke, or he ends up just choking himself out, essentially. You know, there's a lot of fights where he's destroying dudes, making it look like a clinic, and then does a dumb shot or does something stupid, and it just doesn't make sense. And this is all shout out to a bunch of the podcasts I was listening to today, because I heard a bunch of guys talking about Justin Scoggins, and I didn't, you know, they're all bigging him up about how great he is with his striking and things like that, but then he somehow fucks it up. So then when I go look at these fights, it's literally just like that, word for word. He's in these fights dominating, and then he had a fight, who's the guy? Izuzaki or something like that?
Yeah, Oka Sasaki.
Yeah, exactly, where he's destroying this guy, and then all of a sudden ends up in a choke, and it's like, what? What are you doing? And this is a fight where he's supposed to steamroll this guy. He's doing that, and then just that fucks that up. So then now, then he was supposed to fight Tim Elliott. That got canceled due to injury. But now he's fighting a Nurmagomedov, who Nurmagomedov has a lot of, I guess you want to say, momentum behind him, just because he has one of his cousins fighting in the PFL. You know, the whole Dagestan fight scene right now is literally on the rise, and he's a Nurmagomedov. So, I mean, what more hype do you need from that? But if you're gonna go with a pick, I would stay away from this fight. I almost don't even want to pick it because, I mean, Scoggins could give you points, but then he could fuck all that up. Or you can pick him in a fight and then he'll end up losing somehow. Because one thing I don't doubt is that Nurmagomedov is, you know, not too shabby with his wrestling. So I'm sure he's good in that department. Justin's probably the better striker here, man, but I don't know. Somehow, some way, I feel like Justin's going to lose this one. So I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov by decision.
Well, again, everything that you just said, I totally agree with. This fight is going to be at 125 pounds. Said has a 2-inch height advantage, which, you know, is negligible. I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially since Scoggins got the best of Sasaki last time out. The thing that I like about this fight is I think they're very similar in terms of their skill set. They're going to strike, and they're going to look to go for a takedown and try to use ground and pound. It's more or less what they're going to do. I don't see Said as a sub threat, as a BJJ sub threat. I see him as more of a wrestler, ground and pound kind of guy. So for that, I'm not worried about the sub, because that's really what Scoggins for the most part had these guys beat. I mean, you mentioned the Oka Sasaki fight. I mean, he wins by just striking. You know, he gets a decision win or a knockout, but just keeps striking. He keeps losing by sub. You know what I mean? His last
he wants to throw his hands.
Yeah, and his last 3 losses have all been by sub. So I don't think that sub threat is going to be, you know, in this fight. It just isn't there. You know what I mean? This is a guy who beat Ray Borg by decision. So I think Scoggins, lots of kicks, lots of back kicks, good striking. He's quick. His ground and pound is good if he's able to get on tap. That being said, I was able to watch Said's fight against Luis Nogueira. Lots of kicks, slow pace. I mean, I wrote down the same thing. Spin kicks, likes to keep distance, will shoot a takedown. It's basically the same scouting report for both of these guys. So this is going to be a striking match, very similar stylistically. Said's only loss, he's 11-1. This is his UFC debut, was to Magomed Bibliotov, who's 14-1. So again, his one loss was, you know, to a legit guy. And by the same token, Scoggins, you know, he has a couple losses. He has all 4 losses in the UFC, 3 of them by subs. But again, he's losing to Oka Sasaki, who 2 weeks ago in where was it? Shanghai? Where was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Right. It was over in Asia somewhere. But I mean, he was the one guy that I touted as, you know, I think he's getting a sub. You know what I mean? Paper
Yeah.
Munoz is another guy who subbed him. So I really like Scoggins in this fight. I think he's at a great price on DraftKings, 7.7K. I also like him for a bet, plus 130. But I think he could get a decision or a KO TKO. So I really do like Scoggins in this fight. But I think that said, although he's unproven, he's never fought in the UFC. I think if you want to play him on DraftKings, play him in a GPP. Just don't play him in cash. I think it's a little risky in cash. I do like Scoggins in cash or GPP though, because I think this could go 3 rounds.
In my opinion, stay away from cash with all of this, with both of these guys. I mean, if you're gonna put anybody in GPP, I guess Scoggins would be all right, because he's gonna land a bunch of strikes and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. Said coming off, this is his debut. Like I said, he's riding his momentum. And if you look at this, the percentage, I mean, 17% on that biology have Justin Scoggins winning, and 83% have said winning by decision mostly. So, I mean, I feel pretty safe with my pick with said. I feel like he's going to edge him out just a little bit more. And if it goes to the ground, I feel like the wrestler has the better advantage in this situation just because Scoggins is absolutely terrible with his jiu-jitsu defense. So, look, just like you said, look for said might get his first submission win here. Who knows? With a guillotine.
I tell you what, that could happen. And again, you called it, so if I were you, I would definitely bet that. But
I'm gonna do something, so I can't wait to see the props.
All right, so if you look at this next fight, this is a crazy fight. I just wrote down. Yeah, the damage. I just wrote down the odds because when I watch film, I don't look at the odds. So I picked Volkanovski to win. I really do like Volkanovski, but I just can't believe that it's minus 330. I mean, Darren Elkins has 6 straight wins, keeps upsetting everybody. His win versus Mirsad Bektic was, one of those. You should only get one of those in your career, and this guy's had a couple that have been kind of crazy. But I mean, Bektic was killing him for 2 rounds. It's shocking that he didn't finish him in the first 2 rounds. And then again, Elkins is able to save the day with just an insane KO TKO in that fight. Elkins basically caught a leg kick, and the momentum, shifted in the Michael Johnson fight because Michael Johnson was getting the better of him. Elkins striking looks slow. He's called the damage. You called it out. His nickname's the damage. He just gets hit so many times. He gets destroyed, and he throws himself at your legs. He takes a lot of shots, tries to get you down wrestling, and he's usually not successful. But again, the one time he's able to get you down, he's able to work his BJJ game, and that game is dangerous. As you know, you only need to get it to the ground once. You may not get back up. Volkanovski, on the other hand, wants to bring this to the ground. Former rugby standout. He's 9.2K. He's 9.2K on DraftKings, and not for nothing. For the most part, when he wins, he pays off his price. So against Jeremy Kennedy, that's the fight that I watched for Volkanovski. I actually watched one of his other fights against Shane Young, I believe it was. Shane Young came in on short notice. We had to look at Shane Young for that same card in Asia a couple of weeks ago. I picked Shane Young to win that one. But I did like how he fought Volkanovski, but Volkanovski just kicked Shane Young's ass. And he more or less did the same thing with Jeremy Kennedy. Height wasn't an issue. Short build, grabs underhooks, grappling is very good. He's patient in the clinch, throws bombs, knees in the clinch, big punches. So Volkanovski is legit. I think and the other thing with this fight, Elkins is able to get a lot of those late round finishes because he takes so many punches and tires the other people out because of the damage that he takes. So they're just exhausted from punching him and beating the shit out of him. Volkanovski kind of beats the shit out of everybody and doesn't get tired. This is still a 3-round fight. So I'm taking Volkanovski. I'm taking him. I'm going to take him by KO TKO. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for Elkins, but you let me know. What do you think?
Well, let's just start off by saying this. The damage is the greatest gatekeeper in UFC history. If they had an award for gatekeepers, Darren Elkins is the winner of that award. Because, I mean, the guy literally is the underdog in every single one of his fights, and he keeps on pulling out these miracle wins. The Bektic fight that you talked about was insane. And then, I mean, every fight that I've ever seen this guy fight, he's literally damaged, bloodied, and with his hand raised, you know? So it's insane. He's on a 6-fight win streak. And the one thing that I feel like this fight is for, it's almost like a setup for Darren Elkins. It's almost like, all right, bro, we're tired of you winning. We're going to hand you to this mauler and have you killed. You know, because the one thing that the damage gets on most of these guys, like if he was in a video game, his greatest asset is durability. This guy would have it like plus 100. You know, he'd never, you know, you can't kill this guy. But Alexander Volkanovski, I think, is the guy that's going to kill him. Because this guy is going to bring this. I mean, they're both wrestlers, don't get me wrong. But I feel like Volkanovski is going to be the slightly better wrestler in this one. And he hits hard. He's just a punisher. And if you're going to talk about gas tank, like you mentioned earlier, how guys punch themselves out against Darren Elkins, this guy's not going to punch himself out. I mean, he's a champion, so he's obviously fought 5 rounds before. So he can go in deep waters. And when you have a guy like that, I mean, what really, in this fight, in my opinion, they're testing the gatekeeper. And Darren Elkins, can he pull out a fight where he's going to pull a clinic? No. If he doesn't pull it out of his ass again, I feel like he's going to get finished. So I'm with you on this one. I feel it's going to go under, either by KO, TKO. But Alexander definitely finished Darren Elkins. I love you, bud, but the damage is definitely just going to get completely damaged this one.
Yeah, it's just really weird that I don't know. Maybe I think it's weird. Maybe it isn't that weird. It just seems like for a guy who's won 6 in a row, he wouldn't be priced like that. But again,
but the reason he's priced, you know, it's almost like, look, it's almost like you have a team, right? Let's say, or you have a fighter where you literally expect him to lose every single time he goes out and fights, but he keeps winning. What do? You know, like the reality is, this is Darren Elkins. If you put these two guys and they didn't have a fight streak and they didn't have this, Darren Elkins is priced exactly where he's supposed to be priced at, you know, because he's not the better fighter here. He really isn't. You know, the only thing that Darren Elkins has on his side is that, dude, he's won every single fight that he wasn't supposed to. And what are you going to do? Deny him? You can't deny a guy like that. He's pulling out fights. Everyone's excited. Everyone wants to see the damage go in there. And dude, he's UFC embodied. He goes in there, and he's a pure gladiator, dude. He has it on his chest. He wears it, literally. And he doesn't care. So in this fight, though, I don't see it being on the feet too much. They're both wrestlers. Alexander's going to take him down, and he's just going to ground and pound him, and that's it. That's just the way I see it going.
And so that's the way that he's got. Elkins has him right where he wants him, bro. He just wants that damage. Give me.
Yo.
He has a tattoo on his chest that says "the damage."
Yeah. I mean, dude, but check this out. This is one adage that I heard a long time ago when I was playing basketball, and it's every good streak ends bad. So I think this one's going to end really bad for Darren Elkins. I mean, great outlook for Team Alpha Male, you know, because I think he's fighting out of there. I think I heard that today.
Yeah, no, he is.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's one of the top fighters out of there. But again, dude, he just keeps winning, you know? They try to kill him, and he just keeps winning. So you can't deny a person who just keeps winning in a sport where you win, you know, everyone loves you. You lose, well, we'll holler at you when we're back in town. You know what I'm saying? So this is where Darren Elkins is. Everyone wants to see if he can keep, you know, with this magic show. He can keep pulling all wins.
And listen, let's move on, or else we're gonna have a 2-hour podcast here. So
yeah, so let's do it.
For the most part, we have Eddie Wineland and Alejandro Perez, and I think this is gonna be a very similar stylistic fight to
Eddie Wineland's washed.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's gonna be similar to the Scoggins fight. These guys are gonna exchange. It's gonna be a striking match. They throw bombs, and you know, for the most part, you know, a lot of people will say it's easy to say Eddie Wineland is washed, and that's fine. He's 34 years old. He's 5'8". He's going to have a two-inch height advantage. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. His last 3 fights are Frankie Saenz, who he knocked out, Mizuzaki, who he knocked out, and then John Dodson, who nobody knocks out because the guy just runs around the cage the whole time. And I mean, for the most part, am I wrong though? I mean, for the most part, you know, if you watch that fight, he's orthodox, good counter striker, right hand counter, uses the jab, you know, good boxing footwork, keeps range. You know, he's looking for the power, right? Like he's doing all the right things for striking. Now again, Alejandro Perez, I think he's gonna strike with him. You know what I mean? Quick striking early. He will exchange in the pocket, good low kicks, works in the body kicks. The one thing that he does better than Wineland is he actually works his kicks very well. Got his opening of the fight against Matthew Lopez. He defended a takedown. I don't think this is going to go to the ground anyway, so I wrote that down as a note. But it was stopped. He beat Matthew Lopez. It was stopped by the referee on the feet. He hit Lopez with so many shots, and again, Lopez was able to get him down. Took his back at one point. Tried to use his wrestling, which there won't be any wrestling here, but Alejandro Perez has a 6-fight unbeaten streak. I think he's a great play here. So I do like Alejandro Perez. I could see you putting again DraftKings depending on how many lineups. Wineland, decent GPP option. He could win by KO, but I think the decision is going to be Alejandro Perez. I think he's going to outvolume him. What do you think, Drew?
Eddie Wineland is someone who you obviously know who he is. You know his name, and you would think, hey, yeah, Eddie Wineland, I know that guy. He has a couple knockouts leading up to this knockout wins, and then that loss to Dodson, which you mentioned. Dodson is like chasing around a little bullet in the ring because he hits you and then runs around. But if you know about Eddie Wineland, you know he's going to stand and bang. He's a wrestler, I think, by nature, but I don't think this fight's going to the ground just because if he fights another fighter who's going to stand and bang with him, I think he will gladly oblige, which I think was going to happen in this fight. And I think El Diablito is the one that's going to pull it off here. Alejandro Perez is the up-and-comer. Eddie Wineland is the veteran, of course. But just like when you first mentioned his name, I'm going to say it again. I think he's washed, man. I think once he loses this fight, I think, we might not see Eddie Wineland for a little while. I think his shot was against John Dodson, who was another fighter who pretty much John Dodson, once he lost to DJ a couple times, he pretty much plateaued and we really didn't hear about him anymore. And yeah, man. So in my opinion, I'm gonna go with you. I'm going with Alejandro on this one. He's a better pick. I honestly, I want to say this one's gonna go like a KO TKO stoppage, but I don't think it'll be in the first round. I think maybe it'll be like late. Like I honestly think it'll happen in the third round. I don't think it'll be a decision, but I think it's gonna be late. Like one of these guys, the first round they'll come out, they fill each other out. And then second round, start get it going. But by the third round, one of these guys, you'll obviously know who's in control, and he'll finish. And in my opinion, it's going to be Perez.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be a striking match. So one
more
way or
volume.
Another, I think it's
more volume.
Yeah.
Just way more volume. Eddie Wineland is old. He's fought a lot, and it's like most of these guys, it's like I feel most of these fighters, for a lot of these fighters, it's their last chance. And Eddie Wineland's one of those guys.
All right, so our next fight, talking about last chances, Kat Zingano and Marion Reneau. And again, Reneau may keep fighting, but she's 41 years old. So if from my perspective, I think she's going to kind of fight until she loses. And when she loses, I think she's going to call it quits. Kat Zingano is 36 years old. But again, she took that fight versus Vieira. I believe it was like almost a 2-year layoff. I think it was like a 600-day layoff is what I heard on the telecast. Zingano's very physical, can be countered, switches stances a lot, lots of single strikes, good knees in the clinch. She's very physical, very, very physical. And again, when you're talking about Zingano, this fight's going to be at 135, but the list that she's fought, I just mentioned she fought Vieira. She fought Juliana Pena. She fought Ronda Rousey. She actually has a KO win over Amanda Nunes. And she also has a KO win over Miesha Tate. So she's fought, anybody who's been anybody at 135 over the last few years, she's basically fought them. Now, Marion Reneau is 9-3-1. We last saw her against Sarah McMahon. I remember that fight. And what stands out to me is I remember best fight picks. Those guys, I remember listening to their podcast back when she fought Sarah McMahon and just saying McMahon's going to get the best of her in the first round and eventually she's going to quit. And it's exactly what happened. Marion Reneau was able to get her down to the ground, was able to lock in a sub attempt, and Sarah McMahon she quit and she tapped. So again, to me, Sarah McMahon totally beat her in that first round, outstruck her in that first round. I believe Kat Zingano can do the same thing in this fight. My concern is, does Marion Reneau, is she able to lock up, that sub? Because the numbers are the same. They're both basically the same height, same reach. If Zingano's the better striker, I think she's going to get the best of Reneau on the feet. And then is Reneau able to get her to the ground? If Zingano's smart, she'll just tell her to get up until she really knows she has a hurt. Tell her to get up. Let's go back to striking. Don't play with her on the ground like Sarah McMahon did. Because Sarah McMahon, again, is a wrestler, so she wants to go there. I don't think this is going to the ground. So I think it plays out in the feet, and I kind of like Kat Zingano. I don't think she was terrible against Vieira, but she did get beat up by Vieira as the fight went on. But again, she's coming off a long layoff, so the layoff isn't as long this time. So what do you think, Drew?
I feel like Kat Zingano is one of those fighters who's trying to make a comeback after her layoff, obviously. Now, that might sound kind of like, oh, well, duh. Well, but what I mean by that is that Kat Zingano is that fighter who fought all those amazing fighters back in the day. Yeah, she does have a knockout win over Amanda Nunes, but what's Amanda Nunes right now? And what's Kat Zingano at right now? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, people evolve and people get better. And in my opinion, Kat Zingano, I don't think has done any of that. And although Marion Reneau is an older fighter and she is, somewhat, I guess you could say, towards the end of her run, I guess you could say, in her athletic run, I think she gets the best of Kat Zingano in this fight, only because I don't believe Kat Zingano has it in the tank anymore. Yeah, she might come out here. I mean, she definitely has to get paid. But, I mean, she's 0-3 coming into this fight from what I see. I mean, she has 3 L's on her record right here coming into this fight. And Marion Reneau, if this stays on the feet, I feel like she's going to be the one to be more productive and just get the decision over Kat Zingano, in my opinion.
Let's get right into this next fight. Again, we've had a couple fights now that we've kind of went opposite ends of the spectrum on the fight. So this is an interesting fight because, again, Chad Mendes has been out for 2 years, and he fights Miles Jury here. And, again, if Chad Mendes and Miles Jury fought 2 years ago, what are we looking at here? Minus 300? You know what I mean? Like, it's
minus
a big line.
350. Minus 350 if you're looking at this.
Everyone's thinking about what he did against McGregor. And, again, McGregor KO'd him. But for the most part, he had McGregor beat for most of 2 rounds.
Yeah, he was ground and pounded him, dominating him and everything. And then McGregor just did some McGregor shit. So, Mystic Mac.
And again, Chad Mendes is 17-4. He's lost to Jose Aldo twice, once by KO, once by decision. He lost to McGregor by KO in short notice, which, again, he gassed out more or less because it was short notice. I believe that was when McGregor was supposed to fight Aldo. And then Mendes stepped in. And then Frankie Edgar KO'd him also, who I just got a note about Frankie Edgar. I'm going to verify it before I mention it. So when I throw it to you, I'll verify that. But he's coming off a 2-year return, 2-year suspension, I should say, for a USADA violation. I believe it was something like deer antler or something like that, like one of those creams that Barry Bonds used to use. I think it was something like that.
Elk meat.
Yeah, elk meat. Accurate striker, hard guy to hit, dominant wrestler, leg kicks to the inside and outside. Frankie's caught him with an inside left hook, dropped him. Connor obviously was able to hurt him with that big left hand. I mean, he can be hurt. I just don't know if he can be hurt by Miles Jury. And I also don't know what Chad Mendes is going to look like after this 2-year layoff. The good thing is he's only 33 years old. But again, you don't know how much that elk meat / what I read was it was psoriasis cream, which to me is kind of like that deer antler, cream that Barry Bonds used to put on. But whatever,
makes your head swell a little bit.
Yeah, So, but then maybe his head won't be as big. He won't get knocked out. He won't. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. All I could tell you is Miles Jury has the top striking defense rate in the UFC at 73.4%. At Numbers MMA, my buddy, we did a podcast together last week, which went very well. I saw he put up that rate, and I thought that was amazing. And I think Chad Mendes, if he's anything like he used to be, is going to is going to challenge that rate. He's going to strike. He's going to strike early. He's going to strike often. Miles Jury has a good right kick to the body. I don't know how well it's going to work against Chad Mendes. Again, he's got a 4-inch height advantage, so maybe that body kick actually goes up to the head. It goes up level. Very comfortable striking, and he's comfortable in the clinch. He's 2-1 in the UFC at 145 pounds. 17-2, very good fighter. I just don't know what Chad Mendes. If we get the old Chad Mendes should win this fight. If we get, anything less than that, then, this is a lot closer fight. And basically, I think that Vegas thinks it's going to be a close fight because the odds have really tightened up a little bit. Chad Mendes is at 8.9K. I have to say he's a GPP play. He's the ultimate GPP play. Miles Jury, I think, is a great cash game play and GP play at that price because we just don't know what Chad's going to be. But Drew, what do you think?
I think Chad Mendes, this is his last hurrah. That might sound like I said that a bunch of times before, but I'm going to say it again. Chad Mendes is coming into this fight after his little scandal, but even after his little scandal, he even said it in an interview that I was watching earlier. He really didn't have the fight in him anymore. Like, even after his last fight, he had a couple big paydays. He fights McGregor, gets a big payday. Fights Frankie, gets a big payday. And then he said he wanted a year off. Then he has that scandal, and he gets 2 years off. And then in the interview, he says that for months, he shut off the UFC completely. So it sounds like a guy who, was on his way out. And then because he is Chad Mendes, he can't completely just leave like that. I mean, the guy left. He started his own business. And to me, it just sounds like he doesn't have it anymore in him. Like, yeah, he'll go out there and fight, but that's just because he's Chad Mendes. The last time you saw Chad Mendes was against McGregor, was against Frankie Edgar. And just like you said, when he fought McGregor, it was on short notice. So who knows? You know what I'm saying? He could have done real damage if he had a full fight camp. Who knows? Because even on short notice, look what he did to McGregor. So with that being said, if they fought a couple years back, I'm going to go 100% Chad Mendes, and I'm on that train. But in this fight, I'm going Miles Jury. Miles Jury has been more active. He's real dangerous. He's taller, and he's going to be rangy, use that range, and, stuff that takedown, which is why I feel like this fight is going to be an over, and it's going to go to a decision. Miles is just going to outstrike him, stuff the takedowns. And if he doesn't stuff the takedown, Chad will get a takedown. But it's not going to be the Chad of old, in my opinion. Chad's going to come back. And in my opinion, I don't think we're going to see the same stuff. Try to take him down, try to ground and pound. But when he realizes that's not going to work anymore, he can't stand and bang with Miles Jury, and that's going to be the difference.
So here we go. I'm going to throw this out you. It's not a fight announcement, but it's a rumored fight that could very easily happen. Frankie Edgar to fight the Korean Zombie in October in Vegas, which is the same card that would be Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So that could be the main event and co-main event for that October card in Vegas, which if Conor's there, I do plan on going to.
That sounds great, which I'll be there with you, but I can't wait to talk about that. Who's next?
So let's move on. Nico Price and Randy Brown. I think this is a great fight. Another price on Draftkings that I was a little surprised with. And again, when I did my film breakdown, I did not look at prices. So I really like Nico Price here. I think Randy Brown, for the most part, has been a little bit inconsistent. He lost by sub to Mike Graves. He's 4-2 in the UFC. Against Bilal Muhammad, I mean, you can tell he's long and athletic, good jab. But Bilal was really able to get the best of him in some of those situations where strength was involved and wrestling was involved. So if Randy Brown can use his size and length, which he'll have a 3-inch height advantage, 2-inch length advantage, I think he'll be fine. But I think Nico Price is good enough to kind of get his BJJ going on the ground. So I think he's going to try to drag Randy Brown to the ground. And again, I don't think when he works his clinch work, I think he's going to be able to get a body lock, maybe drag him down, maybe try to get a trip on the bigger guy, push him up against the cage, get the underhooks, work for the takedown. If he can get Randy Brown down, just like Bilal Muhammad did, I think Bilal Muhammad just uses his ground and pound, but Nico Price can use his BJJ. And again, you can probably talk more to the BJJ than I can. but only one of Nico Price's 12 fights went to decision. He's 11-1. His one loss is I think he got knocked out. I think Vicente Luque, I believe, knocked him out. But he's 3-1 in the UFC. Throws a really good right hand. He's heavy. He's a counter puncher. Other than that, for the most part, I can see this scoring low only because I think they're both kind of counter punchers. I think Randy Brown's going to try to use his kicks to all levels against Nico Price. Nico Price is going to try to counter punch those kicks. I like Nico Price. I like it to go to the ground. I think his path to victory is get it to the ground, BJJ. What do you think, Drew?
Nico Price is very impressive coming into this fight. He might surprise a lot of people because of, he pretty much has one loss on his record. So, and the fact that you're saying that all of his fights have been finishes, that's one thing that everyone wants to see, finishes. Randy Brown comes into this fight. I saw his interview. He looks very confident. Looks like, just nothing. He's going to walk in and pretty much steamroll him. But I think he's going to have a little bit on his hands with Nico Price. Because Nico Price, although he's not better, in my opinion, in striking in this department, but he is no slouch. So, he can catch Randy Brown. And if you listen to the interview with Nico Price, he said he's going in there and someone's getting knocked out. So I don't think any of these guys are going to the ground. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is something I can talk on and I love, but I don't think jiu-jitsu is going to be used in this fight, not even a little bit. So in my opinion, if I have to make a choice, I'm going with Nico Price just because he's on a little bit more of momentum. Randy Brown is trying to get his momentum going, but I don't think he's going to do it this fight. So I'm going to go with Nico Price just because I feel like he's a little bit more well-rounded than Randy. Randy's rangy, and he might look like the favorite, but I feel like Nico, this fight actually, I feel like might be a little bit, exciting for the hardcore guys, a little bit boring for the people looking for amazing knockouts and stuff like that, because I feel like these guys are going to tie up a lot. And Nico's going to try to, nullify Randy by keeping him up against the cage and clinching and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Nico. Decision.
All right, so let's get into this next fight, and I'm going to be honest with everybody that watches this podcast. I have been terrible at trying to predict what Sage Northcutt does.
I think everybody's terrible with him, man. You don't know what Sage you're going to get.
Yeah, I have no idea. All I can tell you is I have a narrative for this fight that I'm going to play. So the deal is, I thought that this would be a toss-up. I literally wrote on my paper, this is a toss-up fight. I think it's a decision fight, and I think if anybody's going to get the finish, it's going to be Zach Otto. I watched Zach Otto in his last fight, and I don't think he's a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but he is from Milwaukee. I know he's a freestyle fighter. I don't know if he's from Duke Rufus in Milwaukee. I don't know if he trains with those guys like Paul Felder and Sergio Perez and those guys. I'm not sure if Anthony Pettis. I'm not sure if he's from there, but I know he's from Milwaukee. But he's a former football player at Air Force. He switches stances a lot. He was knocked out by Jinyan Ling. For the most part, though, that's something that can happen. He has a good counter right hand. He was able to get the best of Mike Pyle, which again isn't saying much. I don't think Mike Pyle is a great fighter at this point in his career. I think that was his last fight too.
Yeah, I was about to say he's pretty much done now in the UFC.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was his last fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was a great fighter. He was good. I shouldn't say great. He was good, but at that point,
dude, he was something. He's in the UFC, so he was something decent.
But
go ahead, finish off.
Well, here's my narrative, and then I'm going to send it to you. I know that Sage is making improvements, but he's 0-2 at 170. Both of his fights at 170, he was subbed in both of those fights. So I'm talking to a BJJ guy here. So Drew, Brian Barberena subbed him. Mickey Gall, who is a BJJ specialist, he subbed him.
Hey, shout out to Mickey Gall. Actually, my boy Cam Peasy, one of my coaches, trains with Mickey all the time. So shout out to that guy, cool guy.
And again, Zach Otto in the last fight got his BJJ black belt. He was awarded his BJJ black belt in the ring by his BJJ coach against Mike Pyle after he beat Mike Pyle. So now you have a guy who's a BJJ guy who can get Sage to the ground and, lock in some submissions. The last two guys that Sage has fought at 170, both subbed him. He's 0-2 at 170. He's 10-0 overall, 5-2 in the UFC, but those two losses came at 170 pounds. This fight is at 170 pounds versus a BJJ guy. I like Zach Otto for the win here.
I'm gonna jump on that train too. I like Zach Otto. This might be one of the fights we're on the same board on because I mean Sage Northcutt. He's one of those guys, but he's real young. So I feel like and he's obviously in shape. The dude's more cut up than a fucking Barbie doll. But Zach Otto is just one of those guys where he's a grinder, man, and I feel like he's gonna grind Sage out. And you're right, jiu-jitsu. If it gets to the ground, which I don't think Sage is gonna want, or try to let to, but if it gets to the ground, Zach Otto is gonna win this fight. But if it stays on top, depending on the stage that we get, there could be some fireworks. But in my opinion, Zach's going to try to nullify and will nullify Sage and get this dub by decision.
And again, we're going back to this common theme here. We'll go to these next two fights, the last two fights. But again, we're going to the co-main event where Dennis Bermudez, and I believe this is the co-main. I believe Sage is the third fight on the card. Although early in the week, I thought he was the co-main event, but I believe it's the third fight now.
Yeah.
From what I saw, I could be wrong. But Dennis Bermudez and Rick Glenn. Again, Dennis Bermudez.
Dude, Rick Glenn was working at Costco like last month or 2 months ago somewhere. I think it was him that I heard about that. So, if I can go, if I can say one thing about Rick Glenn, this is the ultimate sleeper in my opinion. In coming into this fight. So go ahead and I'll tell you why when after you finish.
So Bermudez has been in the UFC since 2011. He's lost 3 straight. Lost to Andre Touchy-Feely, Darren Elkins, and who was the other one? Korean. I think he lost to Korean Zombie. I think that was the other loss. They were the main event about a year ago. I think that fight was. Bermudez will shoot for takedowns, inside trips, works the jab, will double and triple up to control range. Most prolific takedown numbers in the division. All right, they mentioned that during the telecast. Feely took Bermudez down off the low leg kick, consistent calf kick off his opponent's jab. So again, you can kind of catch his kicks and take him down. But I think that Bermudez is looking for a win here. I think he's going to fight cautiously, which may not be the best thing for him, but I think he's going to get a decision win. I think he's going to be able to get his takedowns. He's 5'6". Rick Glenn is 6 foot tall, and Rick Glenn has a 4-inch reach advantage. So I think Bermudez is going to want to really get inside, a la Daniel Cormier. I'm not saying he's Daniel Cormier, but kind of get inside, work the clinch. Maybe use his jab, double and triple up on the jab to get inside, close that distance because there is going to be a reach advantage.
Yep.
And from there, he can shoot his takedowns, use his trips against the fence. So I like. Drew, you back?
Yeah. What the hell just happened?
I have no idea. There was some kind of an error message. So go ahead. You're back, bro.
All right. So we were talking. I'm sorry about that, guys. So my sleeper is Rick Glenn. The reason I say my sleeper is Rick Glenn is because Dennis Bermudez is one of those guys where, just like I said in about these couple fighters on this cast, he's washed, man. Dennis Bermudez, yeah, he does have all these takedowns and all this, veteran status, but that's about it, man. In this fight, Rick Glenn has the advantage, and he's going to play to his advantage. And if Dennis Bermudez doesn't get these takedowns or, doesn't implement his game plan, which is literally just that, taking this fighter down, which I don't see this fight going to the ground. I feel like it's going to stay on his feet because Rick Glenn will do enough to stuff the takedowns and keep it on his feet. I feel like Rick Glenn will get this fight, man. Rick Glenn's been working hard. His last fight that he lost a decision to Miles Jury, which is, like I said earlier, if you heard this cast, Miles Jury is no joke. And Dennis Bermudez is pretty much looking for a win because, if he doesn't get this win, I think it's over for him, man. He's on the same train as Mike Pyle. So if I have to go with anybody, I'm going to go with Rick Glenn by decision just because Dennis Bermudez is going to be cautious, like you mentioned, and he's also going to be looking for the takedown. And when you go with fighters like that, with those fights, they usually end with the fighters on the ground or the ref telling them to get up because they've been doing nothing, just holding each other on the ground. So last but not least, JDS and Blagoy Ivanov. You first, Steve.
I just think JDS is going to be able to beat him on the feet. I think he's going to be able to beat him early, beat him late. He's got a 5-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, again, I watched Ivanov in 2 fights. The issue with Ivanov, from what I see, is that he's just not like, if you're going to play him, you're playing him in a GPP and just hoping that he gets the knockout. He's a southpaw. He never really stands in the center of the ring. So JDS is going to have the ring control, which again counts for a lot when these fights do go to decision, if it happens to get there. But I think Ivanov, I don't think it's going there either. I'm just saying, like, if you're playing thinking maybe he can get a decision and hang around, I just don't see that happening. Junior Dos Santos, to be honest with you, if he wants to play it safe, get into Ivanov, take him down, use his BJJ game. The problem is he never uses that. You know, it just in his history, I haven't seen him use that enough.
Dude, he's in heavyweight, man. There's no way you're using your jiu-jitsu in heavyweight unless it just somehow ends up on the ground and after you guys just try to punch each other's heads off, especially in the heavyweight division, JDS.
Well, and again, I don't want him punching anybody's heads off because that's where Ivanov can win the fight. Where he can win the fight is if he gets into the ground. You know,
that's what I agree with.
A la Stipe getting Francis to the ground and beating him with all those takedowns. So again, Junior Dos Santos can beat him just by consistently using those low kicks, which again, Ivanov, his leg will be out there for those low kicks all day. He has a tendency to get too close to the cage. He plays on the outside, Ivanov, and then tries to like kind of sprint in across the ring, close distance, and you know, put that big left hand or a left-right combination on you. But again, the combinations that Dos Santos will consistently put on Ivanov, being that he's going to be bigger, probably not heavier. Ivanov will probably be heavier, but being that he's going to be the bigger body and everything, I just don't see him being very successful. But again, I'm using a very similar breakdown to what I did last week with Stipe and DC, and we all know how that worked out. So I picked Stipe last week. That didn't work out very well. The good thing is I had enough DC in Draftkings only because his price was so good. With the 5 rounds, you had to use them in cash. So that paid off. But for the most part, I see JDS he can kind of win this fight anywhere he wants. If it goes to the decision, I think he's got the advantage. I think he's going to outstrike him. I think he can knock him out. And I think he can get the submission. Ivanov has one path to victory, and that's going to be that knockout with that left hand.
You see, but here's the thing, though. Ivanov is a Sambo world champion. He's beaten Fedor in Sambo world champion. And the Fedor I'm talking about is Fedor Emelianenko. I don't know if you remember a while ago in a cast that I spoke about Fedor, how I mentioned that he was like the Michael Jordan of this sport. So for this guy to get a win over him, you know, that's pretty much where his claim to fame came. Junior Dos Santos, though, before you even talk about the low leg kick, let's talk about the fact that he used to outbox everyone. His boxing was one of the things that, you know, shined through a lot of his fights. And it's part of the reason why he never really had to use his jiu-jitsu, because Brazilians, they all have jiu-jitsu, man. It's like having freaking sugar in your cabinet, bro. All Brazilians have jiu-jitsu in their back pocket. So that's a given. But the difference in this fight is Blagoy is going to try to crush him. Because in his interview, he said it. He expects Junior to run around, which is weird because Junior does run around. He has that little style where you stick and move. But Blagoy is just going to try to ground and pound and try to take Junior to the ground, which is why I feel like you're saying that Junior has a chance to showcase his jiu-jitsu. But I don't think he's going to do that because I think, just like you mentioned, I think he's going to outstrike Blagoy. And I think it's going to go under just because Blagoy's going to come in like a madman. This is his UFC debut, and it's already in the main event. So he's going to put on a show. And he even said it's important to him because if he wins, he's already in the top 5. So what do you think he's going to go do? He's not going to go out there to get boos like Francis. Nobody wants to do the Francis now. So he's going to go out there, try to put on a show, but he's going to get stopped by JDS, and JDS is going to keep it moving. You know, JDS pretty much got wronged by USADA. So it isn't like JDS, JDS, in my opinion, got blessed by having this time off. He got to heal up, got some new skill set, and the only thing he lost was time. So now he's going to make it back up, get this win over Blagoy, send him back into, where he belongs in the rankings, and keep it moving. Blagoy is only Blagoy in my opinion. Yeah, he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not writing him off. It's not like he's a no-name. He's a World Series of Fighting PFL champion. So these are two former champions. But when it comes to skill set and when it comes who's been champion in a better division, which is the UFC for a longer time, I think all signs point to JDS. So I think I'm going to go with the popular vote and JDS. I'm going to go with the knockout TKO just because I feel like this is going to be violent and it's going to be bloody. So there you have it, folks. Jersey boys. My phone's on literally like 4%, but I'm still going to ride it out till the wheels fall off.
No, we're just about done here, bro. Any want to give the crowd a little crowd? We got a following. We got like 50 people subscribing to the podcast now. 50 or
Oh
60
shit!
people.
Oh shit, dude,
Hey, you
that
want to?
50 people. I mean, try putting 50 people in your room right now. That's a lot of people, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why we do it online. We don't. I don't invite everybody over to do the podcast. So
Yeah.
just let everybody know where do you have a fight scheduled? Are you looking at
Oh,
a tournament? What are you doing?
so right now, I'm predominantly a jiu-jitsu competitor. I fight my competitions 1 to 2 times a month. This month I didn't really get to do much. I was a little injured. I healed up, and I also began my training towards MMA. So MMA wise, that all goes with my coaches. However they want to, you know, I have all my trust and belief in them. I know I'm surrounded by good people. But jiu-jitsu, you can catch me next month, August 18th, in Grappling Industries in New York. I will be there. I'm a blue belt, 4 stripes. So I'll be in a pretty big division. Last time it was a 27-man bracket. Missed my bracket by 2 points, but I still went 4-1 that day, so it was pretty good. So I'm looking to bounce back from that. So training hard every day. Shout out to Bulldog. Shout out to James Meals, coach over at Driven. All the fighters there. Those guys are awesome. And soon, very soon, actually, I want to have a couple guys on this podcast too. A couple of the fighters. I know we talked about it a little bit off air, but we'll try to get those guys on here. A lot of local guys. Some guys fighting very soon. So besides me, man, what's up with you? How's everything? Cool. I know I haven't been on the podcast for a while, man. So I'm just catching up, but I'll be here more now. So.
Yeah, everything's good. We've had some great guests over the last few weeks breaking down the fights for DraftKings and everything. It's a little later in the week this week. We had a couple things planned that didn't go through, fell through, so then we had to reschedule things. But for the most part, things are good. I was actually down in Hoboken today at the UFC gym, and I sent it to you before, but I was talking to a guy in the bike shop. I got my bike worked on, and he said there's a wrestling gym down in Hoboken that I wasn't even familiar with the name.
And fitness.
But Damien, do you know it? Because Damien and Maia supposedly going to be there to do a BJJ seminar over the next month.
Well, Gordon Ryan, the king, champ of ADCC, is actually going to be at Driven. I think next month. I'm not sure. So it's some great events going on in Jersey, guys. If you guys want to come through for Jiu-Jitsu, great things going on. Again, I'm Jiu-Jitsu Drew, Jersey boy, born and raised. That's my man, Steve. I don't know what else you want from us.
That's it. Signing off.